Uh, nice to see all of you again. Some of you, like Becky, upside down, but still nice to see everyone. And I hope you've all been having a good summer. So we have a nice program tonight, as we usually do. And so tonight, a little different. We, in the past, we've talked different times about Lightroom, whether Ellen Garvey has shown something, I've shown something, and Daryl. And so we've made references a few times, and Daryl did a presentation on Darktable. And so tonight we'll have Matt do something on Darktable, just a basic, just an entry-level presentation. So those of you who don't use Lightroom and maybe don't want to pay for that subscription, which is understandable, and you want the free version of something like that you can work with raw files, then Darktable is a good choice. And then we have Joe Prezioso, who will be showing us some 10, 12, 15 of his shots that he likes. Again, we used to call them your favorite shots, but now they're just photos that you like and maybe why you like them. And then it will have Timur Holodenko, who is a good friend, dive buddy, and also the other half of the Marine Life app that we have. It's Timur and I who have put all that together. So he will be talking about how to shoot nudibranchs, some tips on it. We've done some things. I know Jerry Shine showed something many years ago on how to do it, but we've got sort of a updated version to see. So, Joe, would you like to begin tonight?
Sure, I can go first. That's
okay.
Fine. Let me share my screen here.
Okay. I've seen a lot of you. I've seen some of your underwater stuff, Joe. It's very, very good. And I've seen a lot of your topside stuff, which has been pretty fabulous.
Thank you. Can you guys see that?
Yep.
Okay. So I'm going to keep the right-hand side box open so you guys can see the technical data if you want to see it.
Okay.
So just to give a little rundown real quick. I'm a news photographer. I work for AFP. It's a French international wire service. So as Andy mentioned, he's seen a lot of my topside stuff. That's my job, is taking photos for a living. So it's down in Key West. And this happened to be down there just as the record-breaking heat wave was happening. The water was about 91 degrees at 35 feet when I was there. And the week after, we had that mass bleaching, and a lot of these photos got used in that story. So the first photo here is of part of a wreck that was just, I think that's the rudder, and a lot of bleached coral all around it, which you see a lot when you're diving around Florida Keys now. Just tons of that. And the photos that follow are just going to be some of my favorite shots. If anybody wants to know a caption, I can read a caption to the photo. Just stop and ask. And I'm just going to go one by one. And these are my favorite shots from the 6 dives that I did. I believe it's a French grunt. Four-eyed butterfish. Just a nice general view looking up. Another wide view. A jelly. Another wide view showing the reef. More gruntfish. Big parrotfish that came and said hello. Some soft coral. This was shot on a different camera than my regular camera. I was trying out the Micro 3 Sea Life camera. So I brought that down with me, and I had the close-up adapter on it. So I'm still not familiar with that camera as I am with my DSLR, but I was trying it out, and it kind of gives you this vignetting soft look around the edges, which I'm not really sure if I'm a fan of yet or not.
What kind of DSL do you have?
A Nikon D3S and a D4S. Those fit in my underwater housing. Top side I use a D5, but it doesn't fit my housing. And this was shot on the micro camera as well, with the close-up adapter. Same thing, micro camera. This is my guy that I hired to take me down. You've seen a lot more, just so many dead areas. And I did notice a lot of the divers, they just get really close and just damages a lot of the stuff. Another general view. Raz over there at the top. More grunts. I believe these are called brown chromis, if I'm not mistaken. Another squirrel fish. I love these squirrel fish. For whatever reason, they're my favorite fish right now. Big sea turtle that came, said hello. More grunts. Some more. These are brown chromis, I believe, again. And then some more coral. So that's what I saw on the 6 dives that I did. If anybody has any questions, I'm happy to share what limited answers I can provide, as I'm a newbie to the underwater world.
Oh. So you say you're a newbie. So how long have you been photographing underwater?
I've been free diving my whole life. But I just took lessons with Matt, I think it was last summer, and got my certification about a year ago in Key West. And then I went back in July and did this dive and did 6 dives there. And I just booked another trip to Aruba coming up in November to do some dives there as well. So far, I failed at cold water diving. Matt can attest to that. I'm not a cold water diver, not yet. But the Caribbean, I have no problem right now.
Well, it's a nice shot in the back. Nice balancing the available light with the subject area, the barrel sponge.
Yeah, I am using video lights. I'm using backscatter 4300s. I have a pair of them on the rig that I made, and I'm using an Aquatech housing that I customized to just add lights to and stuff.
Oh,
Very nice. I love the wide angle and the light that you get, the ambient light too. What kind of do you have like a dome port or anything, or
I'm using an 8-inch dome port, and the lenses that I used while I was down there was a 14 millimeter. And then I had a 17 to 35 that I used either at 17 or at around 28, depending on what dive I was on. Because I have to preset the focal length on it with the dome. I can't zoom.
well,
Oh.
great.
So your housing doesn't have a zoom gear?
It does, but I've never been able to get it to work right.
Huh.
It uses these Velcro straps on the port, and I've just never been able to get it to work right. The housing itself is more of a surf. It's only good for 10 meters. I'm using it for purposes more than it's built for. I've only gone down to 40 feet with it, and it's held, and they told me I could do that. Just don't go deeper with it. That's why I bought the Sea Life micro camera, because that can go a lot deeper.
Okay.
But with the dome port and everything, it's an 8-inch dome port. Then I have a flat port, and I have another port that fits a 28 to 70 on it.
Okay. Too bad. It might be worth trying to figure out how you can fix that get that 17 to 35 to work, because I use that a lot, and that's a really sweet lens.
Yeah, it is my favorite. I hate not being able to zoom while I'm under the water. I hate having to pre-select what I want to do,
Yeah, it's just mechanics, getting those things to work. So the ambient
The
lighting,
gear, that is.
You had a question?
yeah, Joe, the ambient lighting is really lovely. As Martin said, blended in with your lights and your subjects, because all of it is fairly shallow, and there's some that are really catching the sun and the rays beautifully. So
Thank
it's a really nice backlight to your subjects in the front, because the rest, I'm not impressed. I mean, look at this. This is crazy. That's a beautiful photograph
Thank you.
for me. Yeah. So anyway, keep it up. If you just started, look out.
Yeah. Very good.
Joseph, I have a question if you don't mind.
Ask away.
Yeah, do you have to put on your lens something to zoom it in and out?
Yeah, it has this Velcro strap up. Got it right here. This goes around the lens,
Mm-hmm.
and then right on the camera lens port is a gear you turn it.
Right. That's why I'm asking you, because I have an Icolite and I have a basically same system, only it's a piece of plastic. And when you sometimes what I notice, can you zoom other lenses, or it's just the one has a problem?
No, I can't get any of the zoom controls. 24 to 70, I can't, it really annoys me. Because I shoot underwater sports.
Okay.
And I can't get the zoom control to work on any of them.
Do you use vacuum in your camera?
No, it does not have a vacuum. No.
Okay, so this is what happened to my camera, just sharing with my experience. When I use, I have a 1740, and when I get that piece of plastic on a zoom, I mean on a lens, and then I set the camera, close the port, and I check before I do anything. I check the port, I check if it works, zooming, and it works fine. Then what I notice when I start creating vacuum in the camera, sometimes the housing changes its dimension slightly, and the teeth does not touch any longer as good as it was before. So I called the company. They said that I probably used the wrong attachment on the lens, because each lens comes with this, I don't know, a little bit different teeth arrangement. So just give you an idea. So it's because sometimes that little notch that you can create with a vacuum can for me, it created slight problem.
Sounds like your port kind of sucked in a little bit with the vacuum. I also have the Icolite housing, and but I've learned to print my own lens gears for different lenses. So I know the mechanics of the Icolite quite well, but I'm not too sure about the housing Joseph's using, because he said was designed only for 10 meters, you said?
Yeah, they consider a sport housing for free diving.
Yeah. So if it's a geared system, I think it very much like was just mentioned, you might be able to figure out why it's not turning properly. I assume the Velcro attaches to something that turns.
Yeah,
with
the Velcro goes around the zoom part of the lens, and then outside the lens port there's a knob, and it's when you put the camera into the housing lens first, like most, and then the knob you push in, and the knob is supposed to catch these gears, and I can feel it turn, but the lens doesn't move.
Yeah.
Could it be the
Sounds like a
wrong
positioning
side?
issue.
Is it possible, Joseph, that it's actually spins? The teeth are spinning, but because of the Velcro, it's not spinning the lens itself. In other words, there is no traction between lens and the Velcro.
I mean, I've tried it every which way with this piece. I've put it in backwards, put it in forward.
Can you try take a rubber band? Just try it and put on the lens first, and then put the Velcro on top of it.
That could work. That way it doesn't spin.
That it would not. Exactly. You would have a better tension between the Velcro and the lens.
And it also extend the gear out a little further if it's not meshing. Can
Right.
you see that it's not? I mean, I know it's not meshing. can you see the actual
Right.
Port's black.
meshing?
You can't see anything.
Ah, okay.
So the port is not
Even if
removable?
you look at it before you close the housing,
The camera
Can you-
body blocks it. Can't see it.
okay.
Oh, so the port is not removable.
Yeah, the port can come off, but if you take the port off, it'll knock the Velcro thing out of the place. Because the gear is supposed to be there when you slide it in and it sinks in.
Oh, I see.
It's a
I see.
poorly designed.
The Velcro thing just seems pretty, I just can't imagine it would be tight enough to do what needs to happen. I mean, it takes a fair amount of force to turn.
Yeah, they dropped the design on the newer housings the same company makes. They don't use this design anymore. So I think it was one of those trial and errors they put on these two bodies, two housings that I have, and then they dropped it for the newer ones.
Mhm.
But I'll be buying a different system sooner or later, something that fits either maybe a Z8 or a Z9, and that can go a lot deeper than 10 meters. So
Mhm.
Yes, now do you get the bug?
yeah. Well, also, I mean, like I said, I get paid for this, so as long as I can expense it, it's work for me. So
Do you feel your job you'll have underwater photos that they will use?
yeah, I mean, I sold all these photos. They all got published on CNN.
Oh, okay. That's awesome. I didn't understand that.
So
That's
Mhm.
great. That's a win-win.
I'm just very lucky in that arena that I happen to be a photojournalist and have the connections. And there's not a lot of, I mean, I am very, very amateur at scuba diving, so don't get me wrong in anything. But I've met very few photojournalists that are also scuba certified that are willing. Like I went on a shark dive, and it was free diving, but it was still, underwater gear with the sharks. And none of the team in Florida wanted to do it, so they're like, "Yeah, we'll have you go do it from Boston." I'm like, "All right, I'll do it. Go swim with the sharks." So I'm just happy to take the craziest assignments.
Well, it's good. All right.
Joe, kind of to jump back to what Jim was saying before, I definitely agreed with him. Every time I take pictures looking up towards the surface, the sun just completely overexposes the picture, and none of mine have ever come out as well as some of those ones there. So that was a really good job. Was there anything special you did to take those upward shots towards the sun, or?
I mean, I always try to keep the sun to my back if possible, but it was mostly done at midday. These dives were all done between 1 o'clock and 4 o'clock in the afternoon. But I'm also shooting raw. So I know that I can pull in the highlight detail somewhat in raw. But I never want to shoot directly into the sun. So I'm always making sure whatever way I'm going. There's a lot of photos that did not come out. Trust me. These are just my favorites that actually worked. But yeah, always keep the sun to your back is the number one thing, and don't shoot into it is something, I would recommend.
Right, because shooting into it, unless your video lights are real strong, you're just not going to overpower that.
Right.
If it were strobes, then you could. But yeah. All right. Well, thank you very much, Joe.
Thank
Look
you,
forward
guys.
to new stuff with your new housing. Matt, would you like to do a little Darktable presentation?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
All right. So just so everyone knows, I have my video camera and audio here on my laptop, but my editing software is on my home computer. I just don't have a webcam or anything. So I'm going to be kind of off to the side over here on my other computer while I'm presenting.
And Matt, if I could interrupt one
Yeah.
second here. I know I've said this before when we've done presentations on Lightroom, is that what we're trying to do is compile a library of different videos on Lightroom, and now different videos on that address Darktable, so that no matter what software you would like to use to work on your raw files, then you have two options. And then so the next, that would be in January, February, when when we're meeting back again after the November, December break, we will begin with one other area of Darktable. The same thing, another small area, focusing in on one part of editing from both of them, Lightroom and Darktable. So, all right, man. Sorry about the interruption.
No, no problem at all. All right. Let me get this going here. Perfect. So, as Andy was just saying, this is part of our ongoing kind of project to create a back catalog of some different presentations and topics. So this is kind of building off of the presentation Andy had done back in May about intro to Lightroom, doing some simple editing. And then Ellen had presented back in June about organizing your photos and everything. So again, this presentation is kind of building off of those ones and just doing it through the different lens of this different software Darktable. If you want to go back and look at any of those presentations, we have all of the recordings for these Zoom meetings right on the Undersea Divers YouTube channel. So in case anyone missed those presentations or ever wants to reference them, we've got them all up on our YouTube channel. So to start with, what is Darktable? So Darktable is an open source free software alternative to Lightroom or Photoshop. As Andy mentioned before, those programs do cost money. So personally for myself, I don't take or edit enough photos to make it worthwhile to pay for a big expensive software. So I like to use Darktable. It's a great way for me to be able to edit in a very similar fashion, but it's completely free. All of the updates are free as well. So just goes very well with what I'm doing. It's a great way to handle hundreds to even thousands of photos, organizing them, sorting them. So it's great for cataloging your images, as well as all of the editing and adjustments you make to the images is completely non-destructive. All of the changes are saved in the software, but those original files that you have saved are never altered, never changed, never destroyed. So you always have that original file, and then just in the software, it's kind of putting these modules and edits into it. But again, those are just temporary through the software itself. So you always have that untouched original file. Perfect. So I have Darktable open here on my computer. This is what it looks like when you first open it up. And over here in the top left, what we're going to do, we're going to click import. You start off by importing some images into the program here. I have a little folder already set up with some images for this presentation, got them all selected. So I'm going to go ahead and hit add to library. That's going to bring those images
Can I
up.
interrupt for just a second?
Yeah.
Everything is super, super tiny. There's no way we can see any of that.
Oh, okay.
You mean the menus, right, Ellen?
Yeah. Well, any text is, I mean,
I'm
it's like
completely agree. And usually it's so hard to see white letters on a light gray background. Is it possible to make it a little bit?
even if it was on black, I mean, that's about 2-point font, I think.
Let me see if I can change something.
Thank you.
While you're doing that, again, so this library that we'll be building for everyone to access, so it will make, that's much better. That will make learning these different whichever software you want to use, it will make that more or easier to learn. And so also if you do use either one of these two and you have any questions that you would like to see a presentation on, describing the use of whether it's any particular feature, let us know, and then we'll make a presentation on that so that it can be there for everyone to use in the future.
So the menu you're just in, you could have actually changed the colors too, so it's not white on gray. Yeah, see the Darktable elegant gray. You could do icons dark.
Is that a little better?
Oop, no, you said everything. Sorry about that. But there are some higher contrast ones in there. I know I ran into the same issue when I tried to present a Darktable. Yeah, no, whoop.
That went the wrong way. Is that a little better?
It's definitely
Yes,
a
but the
little
letter is too
contrast.
tiny.
Right, but there we go.
That's good.
Is that good?
Yeah.
I think that's better. Yep.
All
Yep.
right. Perfect. So I went to this button right here in the top left. That's that add to library button. And then
I'm
I just
watching
selected,
my Photo Society presentation.
that's where I had a folder already existing here with a bunch of images. I clicked add to my library, and now we can see all of these images. So all of my files are raw files, kind of like Joe was just mentioning in his presentation. That's a great way for you to be able to do a little bit more with that information, being able to alter and edit those images. So here we have all of my images here. And scroll down, see all these little examples I had loaded in. And right now, if you look in this top right section here, there's this light table. That's where we are right now in the light table. It's kind of your overview of all of the different, the folder of all those images. We'll go into the dark room a little bit later. That's where you actually make the edits into those pictures. So minimize the collections here. So one of the easiest things and most important things you can do with this software is sorting your images. So let's say we've got our big collection of images here. You scroll over one of them, you can see right here on the bottom, there's actually star ratings. So you can sort your images. Let's say you go on a dive trip, you take a couple thousand pictures, and you want to start sorting through them. You put all of them into the software just like this. You could go through and say, you know, this one's a 5-star. I really like that one. That one's great there. This one, you know, maybe it's just a 4-star. You can go through and put ratings on all of them. And then by coming over to either the top section here or right over on the left side, you can say, okay, I only want to see the ones that I rated as a 4-star, and it's going to sort those images for you. You can say, I want to see all those 5-star pictures. So you're able to sort all of those images. To get rid of that sort, you double click on the star rating and it's going to go back. The other thing you can do, if you see this image right here in the bottom corner, oops, it's got a little red circle. You can also sort by colors. That's an alternative or to be used in tandem with those the star ratings. So you're going to use F1 through 5 on your computer. So F1 is going to be that red. You just hit that. So that guy's got red. F2 is going to be our yellow right there. And you can find all of those color ratings right up here. So go to our red pictures. There's the 2 we had selected. Oops. There's the yellow one. So you're able to kind of sort through those pictures a lot. If you want them to be a certain type of images all grouped together, that's a great way to do that. Another thing you can do, see, I got this picture right here. I got one that's nice in focus, and this one here was focusing on some backscatter in the water. So I don't really want this picture. I don't want to have to look at it. You can either go to this bottom corner here to hit that reject button, or there's a little shortcut you can see pop up there. If you just mouse over it and hit R, it's going to reject that image. So once you move away from it, you can see now it's all grayed out, and you know that's not an important image for you to spend time focusing on. One other thing you can do as you are going through the pictures, if you move over to the right side here, there's a tagging section. So you're actually able to make custom tags for your images. So I've got one here just labeled fish. We go up here. Okay, that's a fish. If you hold control and click other images, you can see those multiple, all 3 of those images there are now highlighted. And then I can come down here, right click that tag and say attach tag. So now all 3 of those images are tagged with fish. You could go through, do invertebrates, you could do eels, you can do whatever you want for those tags, and then able to sort by those to find and group those images together. So again, Darktable is a really great program for consolidating and doing large file sets, hundreds of pictures, even thousands. You can have them sorted out so it's nice and easy to move through them. Again, kind of getting rid of some of those blurry pictures you don't want to keep working on. Just focus on the good stuff. So also on our right side over here, shut down this tagging, there is your export option. You drop this down here, gives you a bunch of information about how you can export your images. Again, all of the changes and edits you do in the software are non-destructive and just exist in this software. So in order to get those changes out of the software, you need to export that image. So there's a bunch of different things here, format options you can do. There's the file format, what type of file you want to be getting rid of, exporting out of the software. If you want it to be a PNG, a JPEG, whatever you want. And then the other important thing to note is right here, the quality. That's kind of how dense those pixels are that you are exporting. You're even able to customize that a little bit. 95 is the default value, which the software recommends as a printing or archiving purpose. If you want to do a digital upload to something, they recommend lowering it a little bit to about 90. Just basically, the larger that number is, the higher resolution, the larger the file size, that sort of thing. So usually I just leave it around 90 to 95 if I'm ever doing anything with that. All right. So now we've kind of gone over how we're organizing those pictures, and now we're going to take a look at that darkroom side, how you're actually manipulating or making any changes to the images. So we're going to go ahead, we're going to select this first image here, and then go on up to the darkroom. Once you click on that, it's going to open up this new layout, and this is our editing area. So over on the left side here, this is our history. It's kind of what they call a history stack. It's going to look like this when you first load in an image. It's going to have a bunch of different modules that are already applied. Basically, the software takes that raw file that you had uploaded into the software and then applies all of these settings automatically so that it looks like how it did when it came out of the camera. This stack, you can also kind of click through and go back. You don't want to mess with any of these because the the software has already applied them. That's how things should be. But if you kind of click through them, you can see how the image changes as those different modules have been applied to the image. So usually towards the end here, as it's changing color calibration, exposure, different stuff like that, it makes a couple more changes. But you're always able to see exactly what you've done to the image. And once we move over to the right side here and we are applying modules ourselves, you always have a history of what you've done to the image. And let's say you don't like
Hey, Matt, excuse me,
Yeah.
could I ask you a question? It's Jim Smith. Are you saying that this software already applies its own, what the photo should look like as it imports it? What
So
is
it's
it?
applying basically the settings that the camera had. It's taking that raw file and kind of setting all of those values to where the camera had them.
Okay, all right. But it does import raw images as well, is that right?
Correct. This is a raw image, and then just that those 11 things right here, 1 through 11, are basically changing the settings to have them as the camera had taken the picture.
Okay, all right, very good. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. So, okay, for example, if we were doing a bunch of changes over here on the right, let's say we make a bunch of changes to the image, and again, you didn't like what you did. Let's say we turned on all of these different settings and moved sliders around and changed the image all around and made it look all crazy and stuff like that. Okay, oh, we don't like how this image looks. Again, we can go right back over here to the left side. We knew we were at number 11 when we started. If you just click that, it's going to automatically move the image back to how it was. And then if you go back over to the right side, make any new changes, it's going to remove those old changes from the stack. So we have up to 16. Again, we're down at 11 right now. But let's say we put on this one right here. It's going to automatically move to 12. It's going to get rid of those old ones there and have it defaulted back to where it was. Another way you can reset the image, maybe you don't remember exactly where you started, what number it was at. If you click this button here with a circle with a line through it, it's got a reset button. It's going to say, do you want to clear the history of the image? You click yes, and it's going to automatically reset it to how that image was as soon as you imported it. And then over here on the left side, just because we are in the dark room now, as opposed to the light table, the export options are right below the history here. If you come on down to the bottom, click that right there. You have those same settings there in order to export the image when you are all done. All right, and then if we move to the bottom of the screen down here, you can see all of your values, different information about the picture will be displayed right below. Right below that, you're able to see all of those images that are in that light table in the folder you'd uploaded. You can even click on them, cycle through those images. So it's nice and easy to change between images while you're in the middle of editing. You want to work on this one for a little bit, go to this guy. You are also able to manipulate the star ratings at the bottom there, as well as do those color options I'd mentioned before with the F keys. So you're still able to access and manipulate any of those information while you're in this dark room here. Now, if we move right next to our settings right here for the camera when we had taken them, moving over here, there's a couple of these modules here that are really important and really beneficial for us to be able to find out a little bit more information from the pictures and what we can learn from them, how we can approach a picture differently in the future. So the first one right here, I'm going to go ahead and click this on, is focus peaking mode. That's going to add on this little overlay and show you exactly where your camera was focused on. So you can see on this picture, usually you want the focus to be more on the eye. My camera was focused a little bit more right behind the eye. So I usually like to use this as an opportunity to learn from my past pictures. What did I do right? Can I improve on? And if you look down at the bottom over here with all the rest of our images, you can actually see that it applies that to all of them at the same time. Again, this isn't an edit. This is just an overlay that the software is giving you. So we can kind of click through some options. Hit show some. So I was trying to take a picture of a shrimp here. It was kind of more focused right below the shrimp or on the arm of the anemone here. So you want to try and make sure you're focusing the camera, approaching it a little different. Here's a good example. This shrimp, I'll toggle it off so you can see a little better. This one, nice and in focus right on the front body of the shrimp there. Because the rest of the anemone arms are in sort of the same plane as that shrimp, that's why they're being highlighted in the other areas. But this is a good example of being, boom, right on that subject there. That's how you want that focus to be looking. If I go to this one, a nice puffer fish here, and you can see that focus is mostly on the eye of the fish. So this is a great tool for being able to approach your pictures that you took, see where you were focused on and how you can change that for the future. Now, if we go to the one module over here, it says toggle ISO 12646. We click this, it's basically going to zoom out a little bit and add on this white border. Now, sometimes when you're editing pictures, especially doing a lot of color correction, you can get kind of lost in the weeds, lost in those colors. You lose sight of what looks natural, what looks real, everything like that. So this is a great way to kind of step back, look at it on a white neutral background, make sure everything still looks natural in the image and not too over edited. You don't want it overexposed or too vibrant of colors. So this is a great way to just take some time and make sure that picture still looks natural while you're working with it. All right, so our next button here is the overexposed indicator. So let me find one of here we go. So this picture right here, this shrimp, you can see a little bit overexposed, very, very bright on the sand over here. So we toggle that overexposed indicator. You can see it puts all these green areas. So that'll show you where that image is overexposed. And a good way you can go, we're going to come in here on the right side. We'll be doing this a little later, but you can alter your exposure and be able to change that down. This just kind of shows you where things are balanced, though, in that overexposure. Next up, the one to the right there is a clipping indicator. And we can turn this guy on. This picture doesn't really show, but there's some red right here on his arms. You find another picture. You can see a little bit on this one here. right on the top of this fish. He's a little clipping there. So basically that clipping means a pixel on a computer represents red, green, and blue colors. Because of physical limitations of the physical software or hardware that you're using, there's a maximum and a minimum value of those colors. The clipping is basically means you're pushed up against one of those limits. There's more information there, but you are limited by the hardware and the ability to display that information. So it can't go over or below certain thresholds. So that just means the lighting was off a little bit or anything like that. And it just something you need to change and be aware of for the future. So I don't use the clipping one that often. Same with these next two. This one's called soft proofing. That's more a preview if you were uploading it in different formats, trying to upload it online, upload it into a printing format, different ways you can approach that. And then this one here as well, gamut checking, sort of just another version of that clipping checking, having values that are too high or too low. I don't really do too much with those ones myself. I've only been using this software for about a year, pretty much self-taught of just going into the software, clicking buttons, sliding things around to see what each things do. So personally, I don't really use those that much, but maybe I'll explore more in the future and learn a little bit more about that. And then finally, we've got right here, we've got guidelines. So if you click this option, you're kind of thin here. So if you right click, you're able to change colors of things and change what rules. So right now it defaults to the rule of thirds. You click that, you can see there's a bunch of different options of guidelines you can put on there. So you want a perspective lines, you can see how everything traces together. If you want a full grid, you can do big grids, small grids, change how many vertical lines, horizontal lines, everything like that. The rule of thirds, diagonals, golden spiral. So there's a ton of different options you can apply for the grid lines, trying to make sure you're aligning your pictures and the subjects in focus the way you want them to be. So that's also very useful for learning about your photography and how to change and approach it in the future. So now we've gone over kind of looking at the image, how to learn from those images, but let's say we want to alter that image. We actually want to get into those editing side of this image, how to change and improve it. So that's going to be over here on our right side. And we've got some different modules here. There are 4 major categories, and then each one has a bunch of different options below them. So this first category, this white circle here, is base. After that, there's also a color category. This one here, the kind of split one, is correct. And then finally, we have effect. So starting in base, the major modules that I use from base is going to be the contrast tool. I use the cropping tool, exposure, orientation, and white balance. So if you click on that, we're already in that module here, but we can see we've got some contrast options, exposure, cropping. We'll go down, the orientation and white balance. So any of these options here, we're going to take a look at cropping right now. So we're going to click on crop, and it's going to open up into a submenu. From here, you can see it's trying to show us how we're cropping the image. And if you click right here on the aspect, you're able to choose what aspect ratio that cropping is going to be in. You want it to be in a widescreen format? Are you going to print it on a 5:7? You can change how any of those the ratios are that you'll be cropping in. Once you have chosen what you're doing, you're able to manipulate it, change heights, change sizes, drag it around. Do we want to do just the face of the fish right here? Where do you want it oriented? So let's just say we're going to do it like that. And then back on our right side, we're going to go ahead and just close that crop, and it'll automatically apply that to our picture. Now remember, this is all just through the software. We still have that original raw file saved on our hard drive. This is just through the software, manipulating that image within the software. So if we wanted to undo that, we can still do that at any point. We can also go over, we'll go back to our overexposed shrimp picture. And if we go down to our exposure, right now it was set on manual. Again, it had imported those manual settings from the camera when it took that picture. So we could go down and let's just say we hit automatic. It's going to reduce that exposure quite a bit, darken the picture a lot. So if you do click on the overexposed indicator, it is still going to show those areas because it has that raw data. It knows that those areas are overexposed, even though the exposure has been toned down quite a bit automatically. If you want to, you can get into adjusting things, making all these different changes, but I usually like to keep it pretty basic, use some of the automatic settings that are already on there. The other good thing about the software, again, because everything's saved within the software, let's say we want to go back to that image we were just looking at that we cropped. If we just click back to the picture, look, it is still cropped. If we go back to that shrimp picture there, it's still saved that changed exposure there. So everything is saved within the software. You don't need to save the image every time you do something to it. It's going to be automatically there. You can go ahead and close the software, restart your computer, relaunch the software, and it's still going to have those changes saved directly in the software there. So that's kind of that section there with the base, and then moving over to color. There's some different color options. Can get a little bit tricky here, some scary looking graphs. Things can go wacky really quickly with these. So again, I just have self-taught, played around with them, moved the sliders around a little bit to learn what each one does. I usually find a little goes a long way with moving sliders, especially with the colors, but all sorts of different options here, saturations, highlights, shadows, all sorts of stuff that you can play around with and learn how to balance the colors to exactly how you want them. And then moving to the next section, we've got correct. So one of the major things I like to do in the correction, you scroll down, there is a lens correction. You go ahead and open that. Because you're shooting in a raw file format, the file raw data actually knows what type of camera you're using. So you can go ahead and see right here, it already knows I was using a TG6 and it has a fixed lens on there. So if it didn't already have this, you can go ahead and click the option here. They've got all the different manufacturers and go ahead. They've got all the different models you can scroll through and then the lens options and everything. I have a pretty basic setup, just the TG6, so it's always defaulted like that. So usually I'll just come over here and click lens correction. You can see it kind of bounce that image out a little bit, try to compensate for the bending of that lens correction in the housing. There's also some other ones in this section here. Retouch tool for getting rid of backscatter, sharpen tool, some different ones. Again, I would just recommend playing around with the software a little bit to learn what each thing is doing and when it is best for you to be using those. And then lastly, we can come over to our effect tab. They have some different ones here, sensorizing. You can make things blurry or more in focus, but a lot of people like to use the watermark. So we'll do a little example here. You're going to type in example. It always comes up with this horrendously ugly Darktable automatic thing. So you can click here, simple text. If you want to make your own watermark, anything like that, bring down, you can change where it is, where it's oriented, the size of it, make it smaller. We want to bring it over here. Then we want to bring it in the corner. If you want to make any watermarks, labels, anything like that, this is a really simple way that you're able to manipulate any of that information. So yeah, basically that is my quick little overview of Darktable. Like I said, I am pretty self-taught. If you guys are interested, it is a free software. Just Google Darktable. It's available free through their website there. The best way to learn is just playing around with the software, throw some pictures in there, manipulate them, see what you like about it, how to adjust the pictures, even if you use it just as a catalog for sorting those pictures, rating them, sorting them by the colors, categories, anything like that. It's a great way to manage those large file sets. Google is a fantastic resource. You're like, hey, I don't know what this slider does. Just type that into Google. There's going to be a bunch of articles that come up about it. So it's a great free alternative instead of paying for that Photoshop or the Lightroom programs for editing your pictures. So
is there any way to add a caption or file info? You know, if you want to say, hey, I took this photo, so-and-so, at such a
Yeah,
location?
I believe there is. That's not something I've done before, but I believe there is ways that you can link text into those images.
Matt, I have a couple of questions if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Do you know by any chance when you reject the pictures, do you have to then also, are they getting deleted from the folder where they are, or you need?
No.
No. Okay, so how do you remove them from the computer? If you go through first your pictures, you select the one you want to keep, select the one you want to throw away.
Yeah, so if you wanted to fully get rid of a picture, like this really blurry one I've got right here, if you wanted to fully remove the file from the computer, you would have to go to the original folder and delete that raw file that you had, whether that was from the memory card or however you got the file onto your computer. So I basically just take a memory card after I'm done with pictures, plug it into my computer, copy all of them over onto a folder on the computer, and then in Darktable, I select that folder and it'll open up all of those images in the software. Any changes I make are just in the Darktable. It never touches those original files there. So if you wanted to touch those original files, you would need to reopen your like File Explorer program and either like delete or move those images around yourself.
So when you on the in the light table portion and you you indicate those crosses on the bottom left side, when it all it does is just gray out the pictures that you don't want.
Yeah, so it's basically telling you, if, let's say you're on a trip, you got 700 pictures from
Right.
that trip, and I just want to look at less of them. I know which ones are bad. You're able to kind of blur those out, or I believe you should. There's a way you can remove them from this
Okay.
section as well.
Now, one more question. In the clippings, when you were showing the clippings, you said it's actually display the certain display just shows you that it cannot there's no color for this specific display. Does that mean if you have another computer with a more sophisticated display, those clipping will not be shown?
I'm not sure about that. That's how I understand the clipping, that it's kind of like a physical hardware limitation. You're trying to ask it to show a value that it can't produce. So I guess if you had a strong enough graphics card, a good enough monitor, then maybe there would be less of that.
Because I thought before that it might make sense what you just said, because I thought before that this specific pixel does not have any color. In other words, it's just white or it's nothing but black.
Yeah, I did. I'm not entirely sure about that. Yeah,
It's okay.
maybe that is it's just those values are too high or too low, that there is nothing above and below, which I guess would just be a white pixel
Right.
or a black pixel.
It's 100% white or 100% black. There's no variation to the value. And did you try to use this software with a different hard drives? In other words, can I keep, for instance, my home pictures on a one hard drive? When I plug it in and open this software, does it automatically, if you know, recognize that this is this is the hardware hard drive that you been worked on with this software?
Yeah, so once you've uploaded the images into Darktable, it kind of saves them in the software. So let's say you had like a thumb drive or an external hard drive, you plugged that into your computer and opened those images into Darktable. You could go ahead and unplug the thumb drive or that external hard drive, and it would still have them in the Darktable software. If you did anything or deleted that folder and tried to reopen it, it wouldn't be able to reopen it though, because it doesn't have those files to pull into the software anymore. You would have to reinsert that external hard drive or thumb drive to pull the pictures in. But then once they're in Darktable, you'd be able to remove that and it saves them in the software.
Because when you use the Lightroom, you can create different libraries, and when you start your Lightroom, it automatically goes to the last open library, but you can actually redirect the software and say, okay, now I want to open a different library. and you have basically two files. One is your pictures and one is the libraries, nothing but the library. So this software also create, I'm guessing, those kind of libraries, because you said everything is this software is does remember what worked before.
Mhm. Yeah, I'd assume it has some sort of library feature. It's not something I've used before.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Thank you, Matt. It was a great overview, and you know, you made a lot of great number one, a lot of great information. And for those of you that have not tried any kind of or only begin to dabble in the different softwares, one of the things that Matt said is so true, is that if you're working on a picture and you see that you come upon, there's a slider that's next, sort of, and you don't even know what it's for, well, then just move it from one end to the other, you know, move it slowly to the left, see if you like or don't like the effect, and then go to the back to the other side. That way you'll get a better idea of what that, number one, what it's doing to your image, and number two, what that slider does, so you can store that away for later and apply it if you want on your next one. So yeah, that's great, great tip. Now we're going from inside the computer, trying to figure out how to deal with pictures. Now we're going to go to shooting of nudibranchs. Now, I know that Timur has shot 1 million nudibranchs because I've been with him when he shot them. And I know that that's one thing he loves to do, and you'll see why. And we all see nudibranchs. We all, unless you went to Florida, I'm not sure you see too many of those there, Joe, but they are there. Is that they're a favorite subject of photographers because they're pretty and they're slow and they can't really see too well. So that makes it an easier task. But then to bring it to another level, and that other level photographically is what Timur is going to show us tonight. So Timur, the screen is yours.
So you guys see my screen now?
No.
No.
Yeah.
What do let's
You
see?
see all
Oh,
the,
share screen. Okay, I see it. Pause, disable participant screen sharing.
just hit that green screen.
I did.
Um,
Okay, so right here and share.
okay. I think
You can see now, right?
Yes.
Okay, so how do I get rid of this? And
So now just if you
Play.
click.
You need to
Good.
start it in Keynote. There you
is
go.
it good?
Yep, perfect.
Okay, so first of all, thank you very much for inviting me. I appreciate it, and I actually learn. I'm hoping to learn more, and I'm just sharing what I was doing. And thank you, Andy, for many times that you helped me with my questions about photography, and Matt Wills also helped me a lot. So this is my approach, how to photograph nudibranchs, and Andy, absolutely right. It's my favorite subject. If I see on a screen some crazy looking nudibranch, I'm actually packing my bags because I want to see it and take a picture of it. All right, so basically taking pictures of the nudibranchs for many years, what was frustrating for me is when you come back and you see this. It's a nudibranch, but it blends with environment, and every time I spend time, effort, and money to go someplace to dive and take pictures, and when you come back, this is what you see, or this. Everything blends, and if you guys were diving the Eastport, it's all my favorite place to scuba dive and to travel to. There's a wall, and it's covered with this red, Andy, what do you call them?
Shoreline algae.
The algae, and Flabellina virilis, which has a basically same color. is everything, is the environment, and it's very hard to distinguish background and the subject. So little by little, I decide to pay more attention, and eventually, I came out with that with the following thought. When I take a picture of any subject, and the Nudibranchs specifically, I'm actually thinking, how do I want to see it on a computer, on a screen, or on a printed picture? So every time I approach the subject, I'm trying to envision it as a final result. So first, briefly about additional equipment that I use to take pictures. I use the subsea wet lens +10 and +5. So the +10 is practically constantly attached to my port, because my camera has a 50 megapixels. It's a lot, and quite frankly, if I need to take a picture of something small, I have enough pixels to crop the picture, and this +10 helps me really to bring to life something extremely small. That's it. So basically, it's 100 mil lens, and this +10 dioptry. I have a +5 just in case. It's usually in the pocket. Settings. So my settings, ISO, I use. You know, I cannot see behind this bar more. How do I make it smaller? Okay, I think I got it. Oops, sorry. So my basic setting is ISO from I don't see 100 to 610, 640. The shutter speed I usually use between 80 and 200. Aperture 2.8. That's very open lens, up to 25. My lens is capable to go to 32, but I found that it's actually distort images than make it more sharp. And file extension, I like to use RAW. RAW files contain more image data and a wider dynamic range than JPEGs. So if I overexpose the image, or it's darker than I wanted, it's easier to bring back colors if it's RAW. This how I start my dive. So the speed is 160. The focal point 16, and ISO I start with 160. So this is the shot as it came from camera, and as you guys see, it's very overexposed, and believe me, if it was JPEG, I probably would not be able to do much with this picture, but because it's RAW, that was the final result. I was able to bring nicely the white down, and I think it's a passable picture from this to this. Next is the camera position. This yellow, I indicate where the camera was shooting from, and the white cone, this is actually I moved from this to this, and it's an absolutely different shot. If in this one everything blends and it's hard to distinguish between nudibranch and environment, if I change position and I shoot more into the water, there's nothing behind this nudibranch, at least you can it's much easier to see your subject. Focal point. Can you guys see oh, sorry. I don't see my arrow.
No, you're
Anyways, this. One second. Let me see. Okay. All right. Play. Okay, that better. So this is the focal point 18, and it's the same picture, focal point 2.8. As you see, it's a completely different picture. If this nudie is kind of lost, this one is visible, and I think it's a better presented. So usually I don't change my focal point to 2.8, but sometimes if it's very difficult place, the environment blends with everything, I can change the focal point on the lens to get this effect. This focal point 20, and this is a 5.6. Sometimes I'm just playing with it, see if I can get something different from this to this. All I had to do is just to change my focal point. I'm using the Light housing and nice big buttons on the back, especially when you dive in the cold water and your fingers are frozen. It's nice to have a big, large buttons. Waiting for the right moment. If you guys dove here in, and this is, what's the name?
Pierce Island.
Pierce Island, thank you. Yeah, this is where we see them, Pierce Island. So the Pierce Island, if you have a lot of water movement and it's a big, huge nudie, you're waiting, and it's just everywhere. This subject in the disarray, it's hard to get. So eventually, what I decided to do is focus on its muzzle. And this is another place. It's a Saguenay in Canada, and this two nudies actually were moving quite fast, and I decided to wait, took a couple of pictures. That's another one, and that's my favorite. So all you have to do is just to wait, and if they show some movement, you can wait and get a good shot. Considering post-production, this is more about the software. I also think when I take a pictures, if my software will be able to determine where the subject versus the background. So this shot is right from the camera, and here it shows. I just wanted to show you, to make a point. That's why I overexposed. When you click to separate subject from the background, the software nicely was able to get it done. Why? I think because there's a good contrast between the subject and the background, and this is what I was able to do. Now this was right next to it, and as you see, when you click to create a mask, the software actually only choose the upper portion of the Nudibranch. The bottom, it considered that it's a background. So it was very hard and difficult to deal with this image. I had to use the brush to add to the subject the other portion of the Nudibranch. And why? Because this blends, the bottom portion blends with the environment. So eventually it was okay. So, and the last thing, I believe, it's telling the story. When you pick the picture, what do you want to show, or what do you want to see? So this is two Colga Velocas. They both shots were made in Saguenay. It's one of my favorite places to scuba dive. This is UNH Pier. I believe I was with Andrea and Matt, and again, you have to wait to the right moment. And this is the same Nudibranch. I think this was the first shot and one angle, and this one was another. It started going down. So this, you tell the story that Nudibranch is going to eat, and it's a different shot, different Nudibranch, but it's nice to show that the action. So this was a, I would say, I didn't see that little subject on the bottom. Yeah, my eyes are not that good, but it's I think it's a nice shot. That's it. That's how I approach and take that's what goes down through my mind when I take pictures of the nudibranchs.
Very, very good. Thank you, Timur.
Thank you, guys.
That's great.
Anyone have any questions? No,
I don't think so.
Well, we're all shooting nudibranchs, and it just gives you something. Timur has given us something to really to think about while we're shooting, and that idea of shooting, visualizing the print or visualizing what's on your monitor. That's a helpful way to look at it.
Yeah, that was very helpful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Having to think about doing things is not necessarily always on my mind, but more and more it is. And hearing how you approach your own subjects is a lot of food for thought. Thank you.
I also kind of liked that you use the same lens setup that I use on my Accolade with the flip in super macro +10 lens. Those are hard to use in currents and surge and stuff.
Yes, I just before this presentation, I spoke with Andrea, and I asked her which lens she preferred, and the answer was exactly the same. My sentiment, because when it's too hard to focus on something and you have a +10 plus macro lens, it's extremely difficult to take a shot. Then you switch to +5 if you need to.
Okay, I see.
Because the depth of field is so narrow.
Yeah.
I mean, just
Right, Andy. Yes, and but when it's hard to take a picture or show, and you like the subject, then you decide, okay, I'll focus just on a muzzle or on a serrata. That's it.
right. Yeah, you taking pictures underwater around here or anywhere underwater, you've got to be willing to adapt, and you've got to be flexible, because if you can't, whether it's current or visibility, it doesn't allow you to do what you want. Yeah, you have to switch. So, well, very good, very, very good. Thank you again, Timur, and Joe and Matt. Thank you both for your presentations. They were great, and definitely look forward to seeing more from you, Joe. It's your first time, and Timur and Matt. We see Matt all the time, but I'm looking forward to seeing more of his work too. So next month, we've done in the past, we have September is the Women Photographer Month. And so we have Andrea, who has presented many times. Same as so it's Andrea Deese and Ellen Garvey, who also has done recently. She's done more technical things, but now will be some images. And then also Liz Roberts, who did a presentation recently, and now will also join this trio. So I look forward to seeing what their work will be, and I'm sure you'll all enjoy it. So after that, I just bid you all a good night, and thanks for tuning in. And if you have any questions with anything that you've seen, please let us know, and glad to help.